Manchester United are looking to sign Manuel Ugarte from Paris Saint-Germain, and in this video we are going to be discussing why adding the Uruguayan destroyer could be the perfect addition to Manchester United's midfield. Manuel Ugarte is an aggressive, tenacious defensive midfielder who has the ability to really stop attacks at their very core. But he's also got a good positive aspect about him when going forwards and being a little bit more offensive, and it's that I want to highlight in this particular instance. So we've got Ugarte here for Paris Saint-Germain, and he's about to receive a pass that gets turned over by his teammate right here. He receives the ball, and then it's what he does with it afterwards that I find so very impressive. He's about to be closed down by two different opposition players, and this is something that I found really interesting and really positive, because he's not going to get that much time in the Premier League if he was to make the move to Manchester United. So what he does then is spin both players and then continue to drive with the ball. This for me is extremely impressive and showcases a natural ability that perhaps isn't on show for a lot of the time when playing for Paris Saint-Germain. He drives with the ball and then is able to take that space, lay it off to his teammate, and then you're asking, what can you do next? Instead, he drives with the ball and really takes the space that this defender has left behind to try and confront the situation. And what you've got in the end of this is his isolation of not one, not two, not three, but four different opposition players, leaving his team in essentially a 3v3 situation, which is extremely beneficial for obvious reasons. And it's because of this dynamic positivity and aggressive play that his side is able to not only get an extra chance, but extra space to be able to take a brilliant shot on goal. And this is down to his positivity. Manchester United conceded 58 goals in the Premier League last season. This was in fact the most amount of goals that they have conceded ever in a Premier League campaign. And this was down to a number of factors, the main one being the lack of balance within midfield. Because of Manchester United's willingness and wanting to become a man-marking team system, with Bruno Fernandes and Kobbie Mainoo pinning themselves onto opposition players, it meant that there was a massive gap in midfield when Casemiro actually didn't have a player to mark. And it meant that the lines between the three midfielders just kept getting pulled apart over and over again. Because of Casemiro's lack of real dynamism and his lack of running power, it meant that Manchester United and Casemiro ended up being exposed more often than not. Now, unfortunately for Casemiro, because he's getting on a bit, he's not going to be able to gain that recovery pace back again to be able to close the gap between his fellow midfielders, and that might mean that a change is necessary. And due to the fact that Casemiro knows he cannot facilitate this change, he ends up going into challenges to try and win the ball back rather than recover and turn around towards his own goal. This in turn means that Manchester United often have a number of attacks that are solely against their back four, and this simply cannot happen. So what needs to happen is a change in midfield, and Casemiro needs to be replaced. If we were to compare Manuel Ugarte and Casemiro and look at their most recent seasons, of course, the 23-24 season, some really interesting things do crop up. So for example, let's take a look at the season heat maps for both players. Now, automatically what we see is something very contrasting. In Casemiro's case, it's very defensive. It's almost negative to a certain extent. Both of these players are central defensive midfielders. But in Ugarte's case, yes, he is occupying that role, but he's also able to go forwards. A positive movement to go forwards is also allowed by your team, but also in the way that you're able to move yourself. I fear that Casemiro's lack of mobility is really hindering him in this particular instance, and although he's able to get himself into certain pockets further ahead, it's in Ugarte's case that he's able to be that little bit more dynamic, occupying the centre of the pitch, but also in outside areas to allow for a better impact for his side. If we were to look at the rest of his statistics, Casemiro has played more minutes, but they've both played the same amount of games. Casemiro, from an attacking offensive point of view, has better numbers in terms of expected assists, actual assists generally from the expected assists, and of course better long balls and crosses. But it's not really those kind of metrics that I think we should be rating Ugarte on. It's really the defensive contributions that he wants, because again, he's a central defensive midfielder, and perhaps in certain instances, Casemiro's defensive work is in question. Ugarte has higher interceptions in 1.6 compared to 0.7, that's quite the leap. 3.9 tackles for Ugarte in comparison to Casemiro's 3.3. And when you think that Paris Saint-Germain normally control possession, Manchester United do not, so you would expect Casemiro's tackles to be higher, but that's not the case. Ugarte is dribbled past fewer times than Casemiro is, and Casemiro has higher clearances and higher block shots, but I put that down to the fact that Manchester United relinquish possession more often than not. And then when we look at some other statistics, Ugarte is more comfortable with his ground duels, 5.8 per 90 in comparison to 4.1. Successful dribbles is also higher with 0.8 compared to 0.4. That's double, with a success rate of 58% compared to 52%. Now, of course, Casemiro has better aerial ability. He's good in the air. But, of course, Ugarte is very good at keeping the ball. Nearly half the amount of possessions lost per match in comparison to Casemiro. Overall, this is a much younger player by 9 years, and someone who is a bit more positive, a bit more aggressive, a bit more tenacious, and someone that just might be the defining factor for Manchester United's midfield problem. Placing Manuel Ugarte into this Manchester United midfield changes a number of dynamics for the football club. Not only now do you have a player that's mobile enough to be able to shuffle across and then recycle possession, but you also have a defensive destroyer that's going to be able to stop attacks. This enables and gives a whole new license to his partner in Kobbie Mainoo to be able to go forwards and be a bit more creative. In tandem with Bruno Fernandes, this gives Manchester United a better ability to have a more balanced team, and in favour a more balanced attack, occupying with 5 attackers and 5 defenders. With Ugarte able to shuffle across and try to stop counter-attacks, it's going to give Manchester United the better ability to recycle possession, and in doing so, make sure that the team can push that little bit higher. In doing this, their need to be able to win the ball back higher up the pitch is only going to be better facilitated. Ugarte is one of the best tacklers in the modern game when it comes to the centre of the pitch, and it's this tackling ability and the ability to turn over the ball higher up the pitch that is going to make Manchester United a more devastating proposition from that midfield area, let alone the balance from the left and right channels with Bruno Fernandes and Kobbie Mainoo. Take a look at some of Ugarte's statistics. Now, when you initially look at this, you might think, oh, that's a lot of red. I'm not too sure about that. Is he really the player that is being spoken about? But really, when you take a look at this, the important stats are the ones that he excels in when it comes from a Manchester United point of view. So you need to ask, what do you need him to do? You need him to be able to pass the ball well, recycle possession, and you also need him to win the ball back and turn the ball over higher up the pitch. Well, his aggressive nature and his natural tenacity is going to enable him to be high up the pitch, as well as his youth, giving him better physicality. But at the same time, his pass completion of 91.2%, putting him in the 95th percentile, is going to enable him to recycle the ball a whole lot better. That's extremely impressive. And then you're looking towards his tackles and interceptions, something that Manchester United have seriously lacked. They've lacked a player to have the ability to put his foot on the ball, stop the opposition from moving forwards, and then allow Manchester United to regain possession, turn over the ball, and push the pressure onto their opposition. 4.1 tackles per 90 puts him in the 99th percentile in Europe's top 5 leagues in his position. That's extremely impressive. 1.86 interceptions. He's able to read the play and then recycle the ball once more. Again, the 96th percentile. The actual areas in which Manchester United need Ugarte to be good in, he is. And then you're looking towards the more creative players, the likes of a Kobbie Mainoo, the likes of a Bruno Fernandes. And even if you want Manchester United to be a little bit more conservative, a more hybrid role for Mainu to allow him to drop back a little bit deeper, recycle the ball, progress it forwards, and then move forwards into a more attacking midfield area is something that I could definitely see happening. The man-mark system that Ten Hag wanted to employ is now something that can be utilised with Ugarte's real dynamic pressing ability. And all of a sudden you've got a team that is fast, you've got a team that's dynamic, that's youthful, that's exuberant, that's tenacious, backed up with the defensive backbone of one of the best European midfield destroyers. Of course he's Uruguayan, but he plays in Europe, in Europe's top 5 leagues. This transforms Manchester United's midfield and allows them to be that little bit more defensively stable to enable the creative players in their side to go forwards and do what they do best. This is a transfer, or a possible transfer, that I believe could revolutionise the way that Manchester United think about their midfield dynamic. And there you have it, guys. That is why I believe Manuel Ugarte could be the perfect addition to Manchester United's midfield. But of course, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Man United fans, get involved, get in touch. I would love to hear from you. What do you think about this potential signing, and who would you like to see come through the door? Of course, guys, let me know your thoughts about Manuel Ugarte and Manchester United's midfield signings in the comment section below. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learnt something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.